Well, hi everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining me again, and apologies that this episode is come out a little bit later than normal. I've had a mad few weeks. One of my sons has just bought a house that needs total renovation, so I'm totally involved in getting that place up to speed so that it can be moved into. And I will be doing that for a few more weeks as well. So just the way it is, isn't it? You give your best for your kids, don't you? All your time, all your energy, and all your money. It's wonderful. But this episode is all about what it costs to go international motorcycle touring. Now, people have asked me, how much did it cost you to go from the UK to the south of Turkey? What did you spend? What did you spend it on? And surprisingly, it was, when I started to look at it and break it down, it was quite a lot cheaper than I initially thought it was going to be. I didn't have this massive plan, so I couldn't kind of budget beforehand exactly what it would be like. My only plan was that I was going to head south. I didn't even know where I was going to stay the first night. So all I knew was I needed to be on the Channel Tunnel at between 1 and 4 o'clock in that afternoon. And I was going to ride from there and stop when I'd ridden approximately 200 miles, Google a campsite, and then go there. So that was my plan all the time. So ride about 200 miles, Google a campsite, and then go to the first one on the list, unless there's something else that shows up that seems a lot better. But basically that's the kind of format that I followed for the whole trip. So when I've been asked how much did it cost in total, I can tell you that it was under £700. It was £670 to get down to the south of Turkey on my motorcycle. So I'm just going to break it into three categories. Number one is fuel, number two is accommodation, and number three is food and drink. Now, there are cheaper ways of doing this, I'm sure, but in terms of fuel, you're not going to be able to get away with doing that cheaper unless you nick the fuel, which you can't do. Well, you can, but you're probably never going to get further than the country that you nick it from. But anyway, apart from that, the fuel in total covered about 2,600 miles, and I was averaging about €12 a tank. So I had to stop every 100 miles because, you know, the Thunderbird doesn't have a fuel gauge. So you kind of just got to reset your mileage, and then I did about 100 miles and then I refilled. So I knew then that I was never going to go empty. I think you can get about 125, 130 miles out of the tank, but I didn't want to risk it at all. So I was stopping every 100 miles, putting about €12 in the tank. So that in total, the fuel came to £290. Now I know that you can get a cheaper flight than that, but you don't get to ride through 14 countries when you do that. You just fly over the top. You don't experience anything. So the fuel was £290. And that didn't seem overly expensive. I was a little bit surprised. I thought maybe the fuel would be a lot more. I don't know why. Probably because I hadn't budgeted to kind of look at what it would cost. I just kind of went there with a credit card and just cracked on, you know. But yeah, £290 for the fuel. The next thing with the camping. Now, I averaged out at about 10 to €12 a night. Now, I didn't actually pay for camping every single night. There was 2 nights that I wild camped, once in Greece, once in Montenegro. I stayed in a hotel on the last night in Kavala, and that was about €50, so about £45, something like that. And I stayed in a friend's flat in Bosnia, which obviously didn't cost me anything. But the rest of the nights I stayed on campsites. The campsites were about €12. The only campsite that was a lot more expensive was the one in Croatia, and it's because they add a load of taxes to the fee at the end of it all. So they advertise it's like €12-13, and then when you come to pay, they add all these taxes. Like there was a beach tax. So everyone that stayed on that campsite had to pay a beach tax. And I was like, well, I didn't even use the beach. And they were like, it doesn't matter. Anyone that stays here has to pay a beach tax. And that was almost as expensive as staying in the hotel on the last night. So it was €40. The hotel on the last night was €50. And the only reason I stayed in a hotel on the last night was because I wanted to do a big push on the last day, all the way from Kavala in Greece to the south of Turkey. That's about 500 miles. So I wanted to be kind of fresh and ready for that, and I was already tired and pretty smelly, so I wanted to get in and have a shower and have a good night's sleep and just be prepped for the day, basically. So yeah, camping £130, or accommodation including the hotel was £130 in total. food is the third thing on the list here. Now, this is where things might differ massively from person to person. You might be the kind of person that's like, you want to have your steak every night, you're going to have your cooked breakfast in the morning, and you're going to stop for a lovely lunch in the afternoon. I'm really not like that. I will occasionally, when I'm out riding, I will occasionally have breakfast, but not usually, because I just don't want to be riding on a full stomach. I'm a bit like, I get a little bit kind of lethargic. So I don't like riding starving hungry either, but I rarely am hungry before like 11, 12 o'clock anyway. So I'm just kind of riding, and then I think, oh, I'll stop for a bit of lunch. But my lunch usually will consist of maybe a simple sandwich or a protein bar or something like that. And then I'll carry on riding, but I'll have a proper meal in the evening. So it's almost like a 1 meal a day type thing when I'm out riding. And to be fair, you're not using loads and loads of calories when you're out riding. You're sat there and you don't need to kind of stock up on food all the time. But protein bars have been a bit of a savior for me when I've been out touring and doing stuff. And as long as I'm not sat on the bike starving hungry, then I'm fine. So the food came to £165 in total, and that includes drink as well. I had a couple of interesting experiences. One of them was in Montenegro. I just witnessed this motorcycle accident when I came over the border, and it threw me a little bit, and I just wanted to stop and camp. So I stopped in this field and I set up a tent and realized that I had no water. And I was really, really thirsty. It had been a hot day. I was really thirsty, and I thought it was the middle of the night. I can't go looking for water now. So the only liquid I had was a bottle full of contact lens solution. So I tried to chug some contact lens solution. Really bad idea. Don't do that. It's not good water. It's just salty and horrible. Anyway, so I went to bed pretty thirsty that night. So, but yeah, other than that, if you got water on board, keep a bottle of water as a backup all the time on the bike, in your bag somewhere, just in case you need it. You can go a night without food, but a night without water, that's nasty. Other costs that came on top of this was the Eurotunnel. It was about £60 for a single way over to France. And yeah, that was fairly cheap, I guess. And when I got to Turkey, I realized I didn't have international insurance, which you need. European insurance is fine until you get to Turkey. But then when you get to Turkey, you need international insurance. So, and that was £25 extra. So in total, everything came to £670. Now that's only about £60 a day. Could you do it cheaper? Yeah, you could go wild camping every night. And instead of having £130 in accommodation fees, then you would have zero. And then, you're right down at kind of £500 and like £550, £540, something like that. You could also, if you got international insurance covered already in your insurance, it's even cheaper. So I think you can probably get away with doing it for around £500 if you're going to eat out in the evenings, and if you're, obviously you need your fuel and everything like that, and your channel tunnel crossing. But obviously if you're over in Europe already, you don't need to pay for that, and it's less fuel as well, so it's going to be even cheaper. So really, in reality, there's no excuse for not doing some motorcycle touring. If you got a motorcycle and you've got the passion to do it, and you want to do it, and you want to cover some miles and experience some stuff, and you've only got £50 a day, I reckon you could do it for £50 a day. So if you've got some holiday money saved, or if you've got just a little bit of money in the bank, or it's something you can put on a credit card and pay it back, whatever, I don't think there's many excuses really, is there? I think you should get out on your bike and do some touring. I can't wait to do it again. I'm really looking forward to getting on a bike and riding off into the sunset and doing the touring thing again, because the feeling of freedom that I got when I was out riding through Europe was just absolutely epic. I've never experienced anything like it before, and it was a little bit unnerving being away from family and stuff like that. And I did ask a few questions on the way down. What the heck am I doing? Why am I doing this all on my own? But I absolutely loved it, and it did me a lot of good. And actually, that trip led me to make some really significant decisions about how I want to do my work-life balance, which I've touched on a number of times in the videos and stuff, because my work-life balance has been totally out of kilter for so long. And that trip kind of really made me realize that you need to slow it down a little bit. You need to calm down a little bit, because you know the world's going to carry on spinning without you being completely mental at work. So I've actually made some massive changes and spent a few months kind of getting that ball rolling, if you like. So a lot goes on when you go away and do some moto touring on your own. Now, you might not want to do it completely alone. You might want to do it together with some other people, and that's really cool too. But it's also nice to maybe have a day or two in the middle of that whole tour where you go off and do your own thing and then come back together again, and you just get that alone time to kind of mull things over, which is what you do on a bike. You know, when you put that helmet on, I remember when I was coming back to the UK from Turkey, I stayed with a friend, Ed, in Italy, in Florence, and he said, you know, those miles that you cover with your helmet on it, it's almost like a monastic experience. You know, you put your helmet on, it's just you in there with your thoughts, munching the miles on the motorways and the roads and wherever you ride. And there is something about it that you get into a bit of a rhythm, and it does you so much good. So anyway, I'm not talking about budget anymore, and I'm going all kind of all mystical. Don't want to do that right now. But yeah, £50 a day. I did it for £60 a day. I think it's doable for £50 a day if you're willing to go a little bit more wild with it. But yeah, if this is the budget you've got, then you've got no excuse. So go and find your motorcycle, go and start it up, put some underpants in a bag, and don't forget your passport and your driving license, and go and tour. It will do you the world of good. You will love it. So there it is. See you later. See you next time.